My name is Jack Whitaker. I'm 72 years old, a retired federal investigator, and the kind of father who always showed up. Birthdays, bailouts, business loans, you name it. Unlike my polished son Garrett, with his tailored suits and tight smiles, I've never cared about appearances, only about doing what's right. Maybe that's why I've always felt like a misfit in my own family, the relic from a forgotten era, tolerated, not respected. I used to think love meant loyalty, but lately, I've begun to suspect I've been played. There's a cold, precise betrayal brewing beneath the surface, and it all started with a text that shattered my last illusion. You weren't invited to dinner. The screen glowed in the dark hallway. I hadn't even put on my shoes yet. Dinner was supposed to start in 20 minutes. I reread the message. Garrett never called, not once. Just the 8 words. Casual, efficient, like canceling a dry cleaning order. Melissa doesn't want you there. I stood in the silence of my hallway, tie halfway knotted, fingers frozen. The air felt thick, like someone had shut off the oxygen. No follow-up, no explanation. Just, you weren't invited. I walked into my study. It still smelled faintly of leather and old paper. My old Glock sat locked in a safe under the drawer. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I wasn't angry. Not really. Not yet. I opened my laptop, hit the fingerprint reader. It unlocked. 3 new email alerts blinked in the corner. One of them was from First Security Bank. Notice updated beneficiary profile, joint authorization change. What? I clicked. New secondary signatory, RL Prime Holdings LLC. I leaned forward. The room tilted. That was not a name I authorized. I hadn't changed my joint account in over 5 years. I opened my banking dashboard. 3 withdrawals in the last week, totaling $29,780, all to the same destination, RL Prime. My hands clenched. They didn't just uninvite me. They were siphoning me. I dialed Garrett straight to voicemail, tried Melissa. Her number was disconnected or blocked. A whisper formed in my head. You taught them everything they know, just not how to respect you. A quote came back to me, sharp and dry like bourbon. Family loyalty is a two-way street, but sometimes you're the only one driving. I opened the locked cabinet. My old field phone still worked. Secure line, not traceable. I called Jesse. He picked up on the second ring. No hello, just, you saw it. I need answers, I said. Now. Pause. Then, Jack, this is bigger than you think. You need to come in. And bring everything. He hung up. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty now. It pulsed, like the house was listening. I walked into the living room, turned on the lamp. The bulb burst with a pop. I froze. Outside the window, across the street, the silhouette of a parked car. Engine running, lights off. I stepped back. No movement. I closed the curtain, opened the cabinet again. This time, I reached for the safe. My Glock. Loaded. If they were watching, they'd know. And that was good, because I'd stopped being the kind of man who asks twice. I stared at the message again. Then I whispered, steady and cold. You just declared war. The rain hit the windshield like static. Jesse hadn't said a word since we left my house. Just the soft hum of tires over wet pavement and the ticking of the dashboard clock. Every minute felt stolen. He turned off Highway 17 and down a service road lined with pine trees. One flickering light bulb marked the entrance. A rusted sign, Thompson Storage, Units 120. Why here? I asked. Jesse killed the engine because they wouldn't think you'd go backward. I followed him into Unit 14. The padlock clicked open. Fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Cold. Damp. The air smelled like paper and mold. A table in the center. 2 laptops. A metal lockbox. He pointed. That's what Elaine left you. I stared. Elaine died 3 years ago. She didn't stop protecting you. My chest tightened. He opened the lockbox. Inside, a flash drive labeled in her handwriting, for Jack, in case it all goes to hell. I plugged it in. Encrypted folders. 1 word. Repeated, ghost. I clicked the first file. Video. Grainy timestamp 2 weeks before Elaine died. She looked thinner, voice steady, eyes sharp. Jack, if you're watching this, someone close to you has already moved. You need to look at the project called Ghost. It's not just fraud, it's coordination. My fingers froze. Next file, a spreadsheet. Money transfers, garbled names, shell companies, RL Prime Holdings showed up 5 times. Each transfer marked with Garrett's initials. Jesse leaned over. This isn't just identity theft, it's asset laundering. Quiet, long-term. You were the pilot account. Pilot? They tested control on you first. Small withdrawals, low visibility, but you were never supposed to find out. A sound from outside. A car door slammed. We both turned. Silence. I moved to the light switch, clicked it off. Jesse drew his gun. We waited. Nothing. Just wind, he muttered. But the unease didn't lift. I opened one. More file. A clipped audio recording. Melissa's voice, whispering. We can't leave it half done. He's still mentally competent. You said we'd get full access once the papers were ready. Another voice. Male. Unclear. Then, once RL gets final clearance, he'll be out, and the assets are ours. I stepped back from the screen. It felt like the oxygen dropped. Jesse looked at me. You're not just the mark. You're the key. I sat down. The chair creaked beneath me. It was never about family, I said. No, Jesse replied. It's about erasing you. On paper first, then legally. A quote surfaced, uninvited. The fastest way to destroy someone is to make the world forget they ever mattered. My hands trembled. Elaine knew, and she tried to warn me from the grave. I stood. We need proof, not just files, something they can't burn. Jesse opened a manila folder, pulled out printed bank logs. He pointed at a routing code. This transaction hit a data node in Atlanta. RL Prime's offsite mirror. We find that node. We get the full tree. How long do we have? Not long. Once Garrett knows you're digging, they'll wipe everything. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text only. Stay out of this, Jack. You're too old for war. Jesse read over my shoulder. They're watching. I closed the file, slid the USB into my pocket. I looked at him. Then let's give them a show. We stepped outside. The rain had stopped, but the street glistened like glass. Our breath steamed in the cold. Across the street, a sedan idled in the dark. I didn't flinch this time. They're not just stealing your money, Jack, Jesse whispered. They're stealing your identity, piece by piece. I didn't sleep. I didn't change. The only thing I did when I got home was load the files into my backup drive, lock it into a biometric case, and slide it under the floorboards in the guest room. Then I sat in the dark. There's a moment, right before war, where silence sounds like a warning. That was tonight. The knock came at 6:03 a.m. Not a bang, not urgent. A controlled, deliberate rhythm. I stepped to the door, Glock holstered at my lower back. Peephole. 2 men in dark suits. One held a clipboard. I cracked the door. Mr. Whitaker. That depends who's asking. Legal courier. We have a service notice for you. Court stamped. He handed over the envelope and turned without a word. I closed the door and slid it open. Inside, a notice of power transfer. Effective immediately per revised estate documentation, Garrett Whitaker held controlling authority over all shared financial instruments, pending full transfer within 72 hours. My signature sat at the bottom. Only problem, I'd never signed it. Forgery or worse, deepfake. I stormed into my study, opened my secure browser, and checked my legal dashboard. 3 property titles were listed under transfer pending. My house, my boat, my late wife's pension accounts. The clock was ticking. Jesse called. They filed it, Jack. I know. I traced the RL Prime withdrawal pathway. It forks in Delaware and mirrors in Atlanta. Their off-site server is live. You said I had days. You have 72 hours, tops, and they're trying to get you declared mentally incompetent. A breath caught in my throat. I'm not crazy. That's the game, Jack. They don't need you to be. Just enough paperwork to cast doubt. A whisper is all it takes to sink a name. I grabbed the flash drive Elaine had prepared, the one marked Ghost. Then we fight fire with fire. Jesse hesitated. You're not going to like this next part. Say it. They didn't do this alone. Garrett had help. Someone inside the bank flagged the account for override. A familiar cold settled in my stomach. Who? A pause. Then, her name is Valerie. She handled Melissa's joint registration updates last year. She signed off on the RL Prime account when Melissa said it was part of your retirement portfolio. Did she verify with me? No. Get me everything. Jesse exhaled. You sure? She helped them drain my life. I'm going to return the favor. Cutscene. 10 minutes later, I was in the car, driving through Charleston's back grid, staying off main roads. I pulled into the First National Branch. Valerie was at the front counter, mid-40s. Nails perfect. Smile cold. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, surprised but too trained to flinch. "Can I help you?" I placed the court notice on the counter. "I want a video copy of the day you processed this." "That information is protected." "Not when fraud is involved." She smiled thin. "You'll need a subpoena." I leaned forward. "I know what you did. You facilitated a false transfer, bypassed verbal authorization, and validated a shell company no regulator would approve in daylight. You think RL Prime's going to protect you when this burns?" A flicker in her eyes. Then, "I have customers waiting." "You're going to prison," I said, "but not before the press learns your name." That did it. She slid a card toward me, a number scribbled in pen. "Call this. After hours. The footage is stored off-site. I'm done talking." Cutscene. Back home, I checked my voicemail. One new message. Garrett. His voice. Fake sweet. "Dad, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't want to shut you out. This is all just paperwork. Let's sit down. Talk like family." I replayed it twice. A lie rehearsed still stinks like a corpse. Another quote. Surfaced. When someone pretends long enough, the only truth left is their intent. Cut to screen. Jesse's email blinking. Attachment. Client verification footage. RL Holdings 0219. I clicked. Video opened. My face. Sitting at a table. Speaking clearly. Signing the form. Except I wasn't there. I never wore that tie. I never said those words. But the voice was mine. The gestures. The smile. A perfect simulation. Deep fake. I stared at my own betrayal in HD. They hadn't just forged my signature. They'd cloned me. "We've got 72 hours, I said, eyes blazing. "And I'm not going down quietly." Atlanta was gray, damp, and humming with tension. The kind of city that hides secrets in its underground parking and reflective windows. We arrived at 2:47 a.m. Jesse didn't speak. Neither did I. The compound looked like a warehouse, but the security told a different story. Infrared sensors, rotating cameras, armed guards dressed like night shift janitors. RL Prime masks everything as something else, Jesse muttered, pressing a badge clone to my chest. "Tonight, you're a systems auditor. I'm delivery. You get in, get the node data, and get out. 15 minutes, tops." "Nothing ever goes as planned," I said. "Then don't plan. React." Cutscene. Inside, the air felt colder than outside. Industrial silence. Lights flickered in 3-second intervals. Intentional, I guessed. Confusion through rhythm. Downstairs, the data vault was hidden behind a steel-plated door labeled water treatment. Fake. The vault buzzed low, like a sleeping animal. I palmed the stolen ID chip. It blinked green. Inside, a cathedral of servers glowing with red heartbeat lights. Each rack numbered, none labeled. Jesse's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Node G7, row 3, far end. It's pulsed. Download and pull." I moved fast, past the humming machines. The ground vibrated faintly. Backup generators or something worse. I found G7, plugged in Elaine's encrypted drive. The system stuttered, transferring. 30%. My pulse jumped. A voice echoed behind me. "You're not on the audit list." I turned. A man in RL uniform, clipboard in hand. Not Jesse. "Called in last minute," I said. "Power routing flag. Servers throwing dirty signals." He hesitated. The download hit 60. "Beige," he said. I stepped forward. "Sure, but it'll flag your console too." "You want your name on that delay ticket?" A beat. He backed off. 5 minutes. That was all I needed. He turned. Walked off. Download at 89. Then a second. Voice. Lower. Crueler. "Told you he wouldn't stay home." I froze. Garrett stood at the other end of the aisle. No clipboard, no smile, just a gun. "Guess the old man still has teeth," he said. "Too bad you're not sharp enough to realize when you've already lost." The download hit 100. I pulled the drive, slammed the console shut. "You came all this way just to lose to your own son?" he asked. "I came to watch you burn in person." I threw the drive. Fast, hard, past him. It skidded across the floor and into the shadows. A distraction. Garrett turned, instinctive. I dove left, slammed a breaker, lights cut out. Sirens didn't. I ran through darkness. The room bathed in red emergency strobes. Garrett's gun fired twice. Wild, uncontrolled. I heard Jesse shout from the hall. Go! Glass shattered as I burst through a side panel, back in the hallway. Jesse was there, already in motion, threw me the backup drive. He'd picked it up. Mid-scatter. I didn't ask how. We ran. Up steel stairs, past silent servers, into the freight elevator, doors shut. We hit ground level. The warehouse was chaos. Guards shouting, lights flickering, a security truck blocking the exit. There's no clean way out, Jesse said. Then get dirty. I aimed. Shot out the overhead transformer. The warehouse plunged into black. Cutscene. We tore through the emergency exit, slipped behind pallets, then bolted for the van parked 3 blocks south. Alarms blared behind us. Jesse drove like hell. I checked the drive. Files intact, uncorrupted. Inside, the raw video Garrett faked. The algorithm pattern used, the metadata. The string that tied RL Prime to Melissa's identity theft, to Garrett's fraud, to it all. But that wasn't the worst of it. Buried deep, nested in layers, was a recording, a familiar voice. Elaine. She was whispering, shaky. It wasn't meant to be found this way. If you're hearing this, Jack, I was wrong to stay quiet. I didn't know how deep it ran. I thought I could protect you by playing along. But it's not just Garrett. He's a puppet. The real one, the one pulling the strings, is still in the shadows. And he's watching everything. Jesse slowed the van. The freeway blurred past. You okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. Not just yet, I said. But I know who to go after now. You sure? I looked out the window, past the skyline. The sun was bleeding through the clouds. They didn't just build a fake version of me, Jesse. They tried to erase the real one. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. You should have stayed home, Dad, Garrett said, aiming the gun. Now, you're done for real. We didn't speak for the first 20 miles. The van stank of sweat, smoke, and melted plastic from the scorched wiring. My ears still rang from the transformer blast. Garrett's voice kept replaying in my skull. You should have stayed home, Dad. Jesse broke the silence. They'll hunt us now. I nodded. Let them. I've already been the prey. Time to change the game. We pulled into a backlot safe house near Savannah. Steel door, concrete walls, one exit, no windows. Inside, I spread the data files across the table. Screens flickered with evidence. Every stolen dollar, every false authorization, the full web, from Melissa's forged documents to Garrett's AI-crafted signatures. Then we found the root directory, a folder marked Final Stage, password protected. Jesse ran a bypass script, took 10 seconds too long. Inside, video clips, dozens, each labeled with a name and date. I clicked one. A man, older, shaking, was coerced into signing over. Guardianship rights. Another. A woman confused, her voice cracking, surrounded by family who weren't hers. RL Prime wasn't just draining me. They'd built an entire network of elderly fraud, masked as estate streamlining. One victim at a time. They don't just want to erase identities, I said. They industrialized it. Jesse stared at the monitor. How many people have they wiped? Enough to build a castle on bones. Then I saw it. A clip labeled Whitaker 0122. I opened it. It was Elaine, but not the version I remembered. Her face was pale. Eyes darted. Garrett sat across from her. Melissa behind the camera. You don't have to say much, Garrett coached. Elaine turned toward the lens, hesitant. I trust Garrett to handle all of Jack's affairs. Should anything happen to me. She looked directly at the lens. A twitch in her left eye. Then she blinked. Twice. Long. Deliberate. Morse code. She used to blink. Morse to me across dinner tables when we had guests we didn't trust. I rewound it. Counted. Never. Then. Trust. Jesus, Jessie whispered. She tried to warn you through the camera. I couldn't speak. My throat locked up. That wasn't love on her face. It was fear. Elaine had died with a secret locked behind her eyes. And I'd missed it. You can forgive a lie, I said softly. But betrayal. Betrayal makes you question your entire past. Jessie tapped the keyboard. We need to get this out. Public. Viral. No, I said. We do it my way. He stared. They tried to erase me on paper. I'm going to erase them in court. Cut scene. 2 hours later, we parked outside the Charleston County Courthouse. Storm clouds rolled low, humid and thick, like the city knew something was about to crack. I walked in with the drive in my pocket and a federal contact on standby. Jesse peeled off to notify the press. I walked into the judge's office unannounced, placed the flash drive on her desk. This, I said, is the full record of a financial conspiracy targeting the elderly across 3 states, including a deepfake of my face authorizing illegal transfers, and footage of my wife being coerced into a false statement before her death. Her jaw clenched. Who's involved? My son. And the people he works for. I gave her the name. Her expression didn't change, but her fingers twitched. She knew it. We stepped out into the lobby. Jesse rushed over. Garrett's here. What? Downstairs right now with his lawyer. They're preemptively filing for a court order to seal the footage, claim it's illegally obtained. Of course he was. Cut scene. We took the back stairwell, descending into the courtroom level, and there he stood. Garrett, clean suit, polished shoes, snake in human skin. He turned, saw me, smirked. Dad, he said, you're still clinging to this? I gave you a way out. I stepped closer. You gave me a grave. You don't understand how the world works anymore. No, I said. You don't understand what happens when someone with nothing left finally gets leverage. He leaned in. You're making a mistake. No, I whispered. You did. From my pocket, I pulled the drive and slid it into the hands of the court-marshal just entering from behind. Jesse's timing was perfect. So was the expression on Garrett's face as the lights flickered from the building's secure server, kicking into archive mode. The evidence was locked in. You're going to watch your world collapse, I told him. He didn't reply, because for the first time, he knew it was true. This isn't about inheritance, Jack muttered. This is a takeover, and I was just the opening act. The courthouse lights were still on when the first arrest happened. Flash, shouts. Garrett's lawyer stepped back as federal agents moved in, calm and surgical. No raised voices, no drama. Just handcuffs clicking shut like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had run too long. Garrett didn't look at me when they read his rights. Melissa did. Her face had lost its polish. Mascara streaked, jaw clenched. She searched my eyes for something, mercy maybe, or permission. She found neither. Cut scene. The press conference followed an hour later. A ballroom converted into a war room. Cameras, microphones, the low murmur of reporters hungry for blood and clarity. I stood behind the podium and waited for the noise to settle. They always do. The investigation uncovered a coordinated financial exploitation network operating under the guise of estate management, the U.S. attorney said. Multiple arrests have been made. More are pending. I wasn't on stage as a victim. I was there as evidence. Cut scene. Night, Charleston Harbor. The water was black and glassy, reflecting city lights like broken code. I leaned against the railing, the salt air burning my lungs just enough to remind me I was alive. Jesse stood beside me, quiet as always. You did the right thing, he said. I nodded, but it felt heavy. Right doesn't always feel clean, I replied. Sometimes it just feels necessary. He smiled faintly. You once told me something, back when we were still chasing ghosts together. What was that? That power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. I exhaled slowly. Garrett hadn't become someone else. He'd simply stopped pretending. Cut scene. The house was quiet when I returned. No shadows this time. No cars idling across the street. I walked into the study, sat at Elaine's desk, opened the last file she'd left behind. Not encrypted, not hidden. A letter. Jack, if you're reading this, it means... The truth finally surfaced. I'm sorry I didn't stop it sooner. Fear makes cowards of smart people. Love makes us rationalize the unforgivable. But you were never weak. You were patient. And patience, when it ends, is terrifying. My hands shook. I closed the letter. Another quote drifted through my mind, something Elaine used to say over coffee. The hardest betrayals aren't loud. They happen quietly, while you're still paying the bills. Cut scene. Weeks passed. The accounts were restored, titles returned, court orders reversed, but none of it felt like victory. Victory is loud. This was something else. I sold the house, moved closer to the water. Simpler place, smaller rooms, fewer ghosts. One morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I declined the call. Power isn't control over others, I realized. It's knowing when not to answer. I walked to the edge of the dock. The tide was low. Gulls circled overhead. Indifferent to human wreckage, another line surfaced, steady and true. You don't owe access to people who treat your existence like a transaction. I pulled the phone from my pocket, typed one last message. Understood. I powered it off, dropped it into the water. It disappeared without a sound. Cutscene. That night, I poured a drink and sat by the window. No screens, no alerts. Just the sound of waves and the quiet certainty that I had survived something meant to erase me. Family isn't blood. I finally understood. It's choice and dignity. And the moment you decide you're worth protecting, even from the people who taught you how to love. I raised the glass toward the dark horizon. To endings, I said softly, and to finally choosing myself.